I will start recording. So we are now live, and a very warm welcome to everyone who has joined. And I get the luxury and the privilege of seeing all the names of everyone who is online. So nice to see some familiar names. Obviously, I can't see any faces, but welcome to everyone in our community, whether you are new or whether you are an existing member. We love welcoming new people into our community. So thank you everyone for joining. And a very big warm welcome to Dr. Ariella Heffernan-Marks. I hope I said that well and correctly, Ariella. We just had a bit of a practice.
You did. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And welcome to this month's Rare Birds Mentor Lab, which is empowering women, transforming women's health with AI, which is our first session of our Women's Health Week series. Now, let me introduce myself. I am Sarah McLaughlin, and I am the General Manager at Inspiring Rare Birds. Now, as I said, joining me today is Dr. Ariella Heffernan-Marks, who is the founder and CEO of Ovum, which is the first personal health assistant powered by AI to support women. So just to begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we meet today and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this webinar. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging and recognise and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connection to the lands and the waters of New South Wales. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with Rare Birds, I thought I would just give you a little bit more information about who we are. So our mission is really around supporting and promoting diversity and inclusion, where opportunities in entrepreneurship and leadership exist equally for everyone. Now, we are best known for our mentoring programs, but we also offer additional pillars such as educational masterclasses. We host online and in-person events, obviously providing everyone with the opportunity to join. And we also provide an opportunity for individuals to build their networks and to grow within the Rare Birds community. Now, if you do wish to learn more about Inspiring Rare Birds, please indicate your interest in the survey that will pop up at the end of the session, or please feel free to reach out to myself or any of the members of the Inspiring Rare Birds team. We'd love to assist you and either chat to you about potentially becoming a mentor or obviously going through our program as a mentee. Now, please feel free to use the chat on your right-hand side. I believe it will pop up. Introduce yourself, comment, connect with others. This really is an opportunity not only to listen in, but also to connect with others on the call. And also, as we go through the presentation, if you have any questions that you would like me to ask Ariella towards the end of this, and you don't feel confident coming on camera or off mic, on mic rather, off mute, please feel free to pop the questions in that chat section or in the Q&A, and I'm more than happy to ask Ariella directly myself. Now, I am going to quickly introduce Dr. Ariella Heffernan-Marks. Ariella is the founder and CEO of Ovum, with a Doctor of Medicine from Macquarie University and a specialised background in reproductive biology and embryology from Monash University. Ariella previously worked at the prestigious Prince of Wales Hospital in Sydney, where she gained invaluable clinical experience and a deep understanding of patient care. Ariella's applied that experience and bringing a unique blend of medical expertise and technological innovation to the forefront of women's health in Ovum AI. Welcome, Ariella, and over to you.
Thank you so much. It was a great introduction. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. I'm very honoured and grateful to be asked by Rare Birds to come and talk as a mentor. So I just will get started. 2 seconds. Okay. If there's any issues with seeing the screen, just someone type in the chat. Okay, so yes, welcome to my session for transforming women's health with artificial intelligence. So today I thought what I'd do is I'd give you a bit of a background on my journey, Ovum's journey, where we're at now, and actually what Ovum does if you don't really know. And then I'd go on to what have been my biggest challenges on this journey and how have I overcome them. And then I thought I'd leave some time for Q&A to kind of get into any areas that I haven't covered. So my journey, my background, what did I see in the world and why did I decide I needed to create Ovum? So I initially did law science with a focus in reproductive biology and embryology, and that's where I discovered my passion for women's health. So I decided I wanted to be an obstetrician and gynecologist. So I said, that's it, I'm doing medicine. I got into medicine after a few years doing GAMSAT. And I was doing medicine, I think, in my third year, and I was going between New South Wales and Victoria during COVID. And I was working in ED, in primary care settings, as well as ward-based settings. And what I realised was that women were completely disempowered with their healthcare, and this was regardless of socioeconomic status. It was because they were fearful of the healthcare system. So after decades of being dismissed, marginalised, and often misdiagnosed, women were going to Dr. Google, family and friends, or TikTok rather than healthcare providers. So this was leading to lower health literacy and a rise in chronic health conditions because women weren't engaging in preventative health behaviours as much. And so we can see that in Australia, 58% of Australian women over the age of 15 already have at least one chronic health condition. And by 65, that's 87%. And that's a pretty shocking number for a healthcare system like Australia. And then it was my background in reproductive biology and embryology that meant that I knew that women's physiology is super cyclical, it's integrated, it's not siloed. Yet our healthcare system has a very fragmented, siloed approach to women's healthcare. And this is leading to longer diagnostic times because we're missing diagnostic patterns. So in Australia, it takes 5 years for any Australian woman to be diagnosed with a general health condition. And for something more complex like endometriosis, it can take 7 to 12 years. But beyond that, I also knew that we had this massive longitudinal data gap, which meant that women were being treated with treatments that were actually reflective of men's physiology, not women's. And this is only being exacerbated by AI, which is being trained off these gender data sets, but also being trained mainly by men. And so I knew that fundamentally there was this massive gap in women's health. And only recently has this been labelled as the gender health gap, which we now know is costing the global economy $1 trillion annually. And that's because women are spending 25% more time in poor health than men. So their health span, not their lifespan, is much worse than men's. And it's because of some of the problems that I've just talked about. And I knew that I needed to create a solution to this problem. And that led me to create Ovum, which is the first holistic AI health assistant for women. It's her personal health ally that she can keep in her pocket and access whenever she needs. So sorry, just excuse the videos aren't working because it's PDF, but usually that would be working. She can integrate all of her health records, her medications, her appointments, her biometric data from her wearable devices, and we're actually now building an intuitive cycle tracker within the app as well. She can then speak to Ovum using voice recognition or written word to get personalised responses, because what Ovum does is it takes all of this data and creates a longitudinal memory of her health that she can use to understand herself better, therefore advocate for herself and take part in shared decision-making, which we know is likely to lead in better engagement in healthcare activities and reduce chronic health conditions amongst women, whilst at the same time collecting the first proprietary longitudinal data set that can feed back into research to begin to close the longitudinal data gap and improve diagnostics and treatments for women. The aim being to transform how every woman experiences healthcare. Another big goal for us is achieving very high levels of data privacy and cybersecurity. So we're aiming for SOC 2 Type 2 and HIPAA compliance, even from the early stages. And we've had legal input and expert security advice, even with our pilot version. So that takes me to the pilot. I thought I'd just give you a little rundown of the pilot that we just did with Ovum, which was our beta version. So we did that for 1 month. We had 150 women aged 18 to 65 download Ovum in just 1 week without any paid advertisement. The average time when we're spending on Ovum was 15 minutes. Our net promoter score was 60, so that is reflective of brand loyalty. And majority of women were very satisfied with every feature of Ovum. We also found that women were planning to show Ovum to their GPs to help facilitate that shared decision-making process, and that women found Ovum user-friendly, accessible, empowering, reassuring, and comprehensive. We also found the majority of women would pay $25 per month, and that 100% of women would use Ovum if their health fund covered it. This is just some of the more personal feedback that we got during our pilot, which really highlighted that Ovum was successfully achieving empowerment for women in terms of having autonomy over their data and making it easier for them to track. We also found that it wasn't about using Ovum every single day. It was about having Ovum in your pocket always. So you felt reassured that if you did have a health problem or you were concerned or you didn't know where to go, you had Ovum there. But also that it was intuitive and easy to use. And I think that was really what we wanted to test in this pilot. So I thought from now, I kind of talk a bit more about the journey. How did I get to this point? So as I mentioned, I had the idea in medical school when I could see the problem in front of me. But at that point, there was no AI. There was no clear technology that could make this happen. So I knew that I had to educate myself on commercialization, on health tech, on really understanding this startup space because I had zero idea. So I went to an organization called Femtech Collective and I basically said, is there a market? Is there an opportunity? And what do I do? And they really guided me on what is a pitch deck. Yes, there's a market opportunity. This is how you need to validate the idea with your customers and help me build surveys that I then did with over 150 women aged between 16 to 65. Then I also went to Cicada Innovation. So they're based actually in New South Wales and they run 3-day courses on different innovative areas. So I did health tech, commercialization of a health tech idea along those lines. And it's free, but you have to apply. And I learned everything from the regulatory landscape to legals to investment, business models. I didn't know what B2C or B2B2C was. And I really had to educate myself on what the process looked like. So I understood the decisions I was making in terms of moving from medicine into this space. Is actually during these 3 days I met a woman who was doing VR goggles for PTSD, and she said, I work with these incredible Australian developers. Nakatomi, you should go and talk to them. They're expensive, but go talk to them, because a key message I got out of that workshop was that a lot of people in tech had been, if they weren't developers, they'd been stuffed by their product developers. Something hadn't worked and it cost too much money. So I went to Nakatomi, I pitched the idea, and I was fortunate enough they actually invested. And so it was that investment alongside Wallamai Capital Group, which is the Denholm family, who believed in my idea really, really early. And so this is before I had a prototype. At this stage, we started to work on the idea and the prototype, but we were stuck with the tech because AI was around, but it wasn't available commercially for us to use. At this point, I was finishing my final medical exams, and I decided to do the 10X Health Pre-Accelerator, which really pushed me to validate my idea even more and work with incredible founders who all guided me on understanding my customers, understanding what I need to be looking for in developing my product. And then I also did the SBE, which is a Women's Founder Accelerator program, which taught me about pitching and refining my pitch deck. So I was constantly surrounding myself by people who'd done things before me, experts, advisors. I didn't try and do it all on my own. I then decided to do my internship because I wanted my general accreditation as a doctor. And at this point, I was still weighing up the pathways. I really wanted to validate that Ovum was going to be a career for me and that people wanted this idea as well. And then as we were in the process of we had this prototype, but we didn't know, how to make it work from a tech perspective that wasn't exceptionally costly. And then open access came out and we decided that maybe AI was a solve here. And we were going to move away from reproductive and go into not chronic health, but women's health and preventative health. And at this point, there was a lot of controversy around this. And I was in the hospital and I had to go with my gut and say, this is where I think what we should be doing. And I followed my gut, even though maybe society and the media weren't necessarily supporting that. And I'm so glad that I did. And so Nakatomi continued to be part of the journey, and Wallamai invested again because I'd shown development in my product from idea. And I think that's also a really important part of the journey, is always going back to the people who are supporting you from the beginning, because they're the ones that are with you and probably will stay with you throughout. Once I kind of got to the point where we had the tech, we kind of figured out, this is, what we can build now in terms of an MVP. I decided I was going to go full time. I had a lot of community support. I knew that investors are wanting me to go full time in order to obviously run this company. So beginning of 2024, I left medicine and decided to run Ovum full time. So it's been only a few months. And in the process, I decided to do crowdfunding as an exercise for marketing, customer acquisition, but also it was a competition. So I actually won $20,000 and raised another $3,000. So it was a great exercise, and I was working with a team of other women founders from across APAC. So it was a really great way to support each other and learn about other markets at the same time. And through this further investment and through doing this, I actually was able to then fund the pilot. So we ran that, as I said, for a month. We built out the MVP, which is everything that you've just seen. And we got obviously incredible feedback and went, more successfully than I could have even asked for. And now we're moving on to the commercial version. We're raising, and I'm doing my PhD with Ovum through the George Institute for Global Health, so that we're clinically validating the product, because we want this to be accepted by doctors. We want to be affiliated with a research institution. And for commercial partnerships, especially in maybe the health fund space, we do need to show, clinical evidence that this is acting as a preventative health tool. So that's where I'm at now. So you can see how many ups, downs all around have got me to this point. So here are just some of the companies or organizations that I just mentioned. I'm sure maybe the logos seem more familiar to you, but definitely if you have an idea, especially in the health tech or femtech space, reach out to these organizations. So I thought I'd go on to talking a bit more about what were my biggest challenges. So firstly was, I guess, defying the expectation of a normal medical career. For so long in the medical world, it's been about doing medical school, doing your basic training, getting onto a training program and ticking off all the boxes that you need, all the points you need to get onto the training program. And, for the first probably 12 months of doing Ovum, I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. I was missing some lectures and things to go to these workshops. And eventually, when I was open about it, I did get questions about, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You're going to be a doctor. And I had to, I guess, ignore that and push that to the side and go with my gut in order to be where I am today. And that was hard when you're surrounded, especially in medicine. It is a bit of a bubble. Leaving stability for risk. So I trained a bit in law. I trained in medicine. It was all, very straightforward in terms of, you pretty much got a job, you got a salary, straightforward. And I had to make the choice to leave that to do something that was more risky. I didn't jump straight in. I didn't sell my house and just leave my job. I really tried to validate that risk first. I think making the path rather than walking on a paved one was difficult. So I'd always been in academia, whether it was school, university, even in medicines, everything's pretty much set out for you. The path is there. Whereas on this journey as a founder, you're the one making the decisions. You're the one deciding what happens next and how you're going to execute. And that's been a really, strange adjustment now, being full-time as a founder and really having to be the leader of my day-to-day. I think becoming a disruptor instead of a follower. So before Ovum, I always had opinions, but I wasn't the person to raise my hand in class and speak out. I could present, but only, when I'd practice. That was probably the perfectionist tendencies there. But then moving into Ovum, working with supporters and, advice from marketing was, you're a leader in this space. And so you're creating a disruptive technology and you need to come out and share your opinions and share your thoughts. And so it's taken about 2 years to feel comfortable with being in front of a camera on TikTok or Instagram or sharing my thoughts on LinkedIn. But, there's definitely been great reward from that. And I'm very happy that I learned to overcome that. I think being a woman, as a founder, as a patient, as a doctor, there's always been challenges. I mean, there's also been massive benefits as well. But I think for me as a founder, it was hard raising for a femtech product as a woman. And then when AI came to the picture, it was tricky because I felt like there was an expectation to prove myself more than maybe my male colleagues. As a patient, I dealt with chronic health issues and even with quite high levels of health literacy, struggled a lot with getting diagnoses and treatments that should have been, done a lot earlier. And I had quite horrible healthcare experiences. As a doctor, I actually found the challenges were the least. Medical training was actually, I was fortunate enough that I didn't experience a lot of gender bias, but that's not to say that other women don't. So when it comes to how I overcame these, I think I've maybe accidentally already touched on some of it, but trusting my intuition was a big one. As I said, when I had so many people in medicine questioning what I was doing, telling me that I should probably just keep working and following the path, I trusted my gut and I made the decision to leave, or trusting the decision to pivot towards AI, even though obviously it's quite controversial at the time. I've trusted my intuition and I've started to do training my business coach to delve more into that intuition. I talked about validating the risk, so seeking advice commercially about, the validity of this product and if it was going to work and if I should, move over from medicine into this full time. Support and education. I have so many mentors and advisors in research, in clinical medicine, in commercialization, in tech. I don't try and know everything. I try and learn from those around me, and I believe that's what makes a good leader. And I think if you do have an idea and you are trying to, do something with it, seek help. It's okay to ask for help. I think politely disrupting has been my kind of motto, which is it's great to have an opinion. It's great to raise awareness of ideas and thoughts, but I think it's also important to acknowledge other people's ideas, admit when you're wrong, and really learn to adapt or be flexible with those opinions. I think it's okay to be outspoken, but it is about how you do it. I think aligning with those with similar values. Haters are going to hate. There's going to be people who disagree, don't like you. That's always, no matter what you do. But in this, especially when you're a founder and you're kind of on this journey alone, you want people around you that support you, believe in you, and believe in your idea. And you quickly learn how to identify those people and stay away from those that don't lift you up and don't empower you. So sorry. So I thought I'd end on this quote because it resonated with me, and I also think it's a great takeaway message. So I have lots of things to prove to myself. One is that I can live my life fearlessly. So I think firstly, what it's saying is that no matter what you're doing, whatever your mission is or whatever you've decided is going to make you the most happy or empower you or give you the most reward in your life, there's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be hurdles. And sometimes you just need to jump. And sometimes that brings you the biggest reward. I also think the other part of this message is that whatever journey you're on, whatever things you are trying to do, you should be doing them to prove it to yourself, not to prove it to others. So whatever challenges you're trying to get overcome, at the end of the day, hopefully it's to prove that to yourself that you can do it, not because you're trying to constantly try and meet the expectations of society and what others think of you, because that's never going to make you happy. So I thought I'd end on that and give some time for questions. I'm not sure if I've gone over time, but
no, that was beautiful. Thank you so much, Ariella. And now I would like to just start with a few questions before I open up to our audience. So I'm just going to shoot and just ask a few things. Now, how did you see AI continuing to impact, or how do you see AI continuing to impact women's health technology in the future? And how do you believe Ovum will contribute?
Yeah, great question. So firstly, I think we look at AI as it stands now. It's obviously constantly evolving every second, but it is still gendered. It is skewed towards basically the white man. Unfortunately, we call it reference man. There's a great video on it, actually, for anyone who's interested, on Victorian government website. And that means that a lot of its outputs, not just in healthcare, but numerous industries, are not really reflective of socioculturally diverse populations or women. So I guess this leads into the next question about how Ovum was going to contribute to that. So the aim of Ovum is to create this longitudinal, proprietary, women-specific AI data set. So you can actually begin to feed this back into research, into industry, to hopefully begin to make AI and LLMs more representative of women. And of course, it is a bit of the chicken and egg. Where do you start? And so how we're doing that is we're fine-tuning the model very early to be more representative of women in its tone, in how it recognises women's issues, what resources it's accessing, but also the more that women use Ovum, the better the machine learning or the LLM gets. And I think if you look at the general research about women and AI, what the research at this point is saying that women do actually feel comfortable using AI for health and wellness, maybe not diagnostics, but for example, genetic counselling, mental health, for talk therapy. And in our pilot, we confirmed that as well. So 86% of women had been using or had used ChatGPT before. And when they did use Ovum, they felt reassured, empowered, they felt the tone was perfect and professional. So I think that we will see Ovum AI, if done safely and trained correctly to be representative, to actually be really helpful for women to navigate the often complex issues.
Excellent. All right. Now, considering the evolving healthcare landscape, how do you navigate regulatory challenges and ensure compliance, obviously, while continuing to innovate with new technologies like AI in healthcare?
Yeah, of course. Great question as well. So I think firstly, when it comes to innovation and being aware of regulatory landscapes within Australia and globally, it's back to the point of educating yourself and getting support. So whether that's legal advisors who specialise in privacy and cybersecurity, whether that's educating yourself through a lot of these workshops like I did actually taught me a lot about the regulatory landscape here and overseas, like in terms of the TGA and the FDA and where softwares versus medical devices fit. And then I think it's about actually applying that in the build of your product really early on, so you're not left trying to make adjustments after the fact, after something goes wrong. So if we look at TGA in Australia, I've linked a document, I'm not sure if it's in the email, which is a flowchart of is your software regulated? Because, if you've got a medical device, it's clearly a class 1, class 2, class 3, it will fit into those categories. But when you're developing a health software, how do you classify it? So basically, if it is something that tries to diagnose or replace a doctor or deals with in vitro embryos, it is automatically regulated. But for example, Ovum is exempt because it's a consumer-based product that focuses on health and wellness, but is not diagnostic and doesn't replace a doctor. We, in the future, might go into diagnosis, but at this point, that's where we land. So that's really important. Then when you look at data privacy and cybersecurity, so we have the Privacy Act, of course, but to be honest, it's very generalized about the fact that you need to be cautious of specific types of data and how you store it, but it doesn't recommend necessarily specifics around that. So you should definitely get legal advice in this area. So we had legal support with our privacy policies, T's and C's, guiding us on how we should store our data in the most safe way, what data we shouldn't be collecting to minimize our users' risk of, cyber terrorism. So we don't use real first names. We use year of birth, not date of birth. We use region. We don't use addresses or postcodes, anything that could identify the individual. Or on our medical records that you upload, we're building software to get rid of any identifiable information in that. And then there's the SOC 2 and type 2 and HIPAA compliance and GDPR, which are all about compliance regulations, which are really important. But you can get companies to help you with that as well.
Great. Thanks for explaining that. And now just a quick one before I do ask the next question. Just for the audience, if Ariella references any links or anything along those lines, we will pop those to you in an email after the session. So just in case you're frantically writing down, there will be an email that will go out after this. Now, given that Ovum is currently app-based, will it be able to integrate with any wearable technology in the future? Is that something on your roadmap at all?
Yeah, so it already integrates with your wearable. Anything that you've connected with Apple Health, it will be able to connect with. So it snapshots your biometric data at that point in time when you're talking. But we are also looking at building a wearable for women specifically that's a little bit more aesthetic than what we're currently seeing on the market and easy to use, but also looking at, we're actually talking with companies who are working on patches to measure hormones in that moment. And so if we can integrate with technologies like that, then that's what we're looking at as more of a long-term roadmap.
Awesome. Now, how do you ensure that Ovum remains inclusive and accessible, to women from diverse backgrounds with varying different healthcare needs?
Yeah, so our approach has been the fact that we've got, so in terms of our design, then in terms of our actual fine tuning of the model, and then also, I guess, in the approach to the problem we're trying to solve. So if we look at our design, we've chose, very gender neutral colors. When you onboard with Ovum, we do ask if you identify as being a woman, but we expect that this is going to be, a very broad definition. We want this to be inclusive. We want as many people who feel that they need Ovum to support their health to use it. Then in our fine tuning, the tone that we've trained Ovum to have is very in different languages. And, we've also trained it to be aware of culturally different situations. But of course, the more women from diverse backgrounds that use Ovum, the better. So we're also making Ovums in our cost model. You can pay for individual access, but you can also pay it forward for another woman who can't afford it. And that way we're reaching it to women maybe in lower socioeconomic groups who wouldn't be able to spend a monthly amount on an app, because those women need to be able to access Ovum as well.
Amazing. I mean, I'd love for you to, if there's any link or anything that the community can do, obviously to pay it forward, that'd be wonderful if you could send that link out as well. I do have two quick questions, and then I will open up to the audience. How do you measure the success and the impact of Ovum on women's health? And what are the metrics that, you are most important? What kind of data are you actually gathering?
Yeah, no. So really, the way I think about it is the measure of success and impact changes across the product timeline, but for us, it's always come back to women. What are women saying? What do women want? We're listening to women. It's always been about making this alongside women. So, as I said, from the idea, it was about talking to as many women from as many backgrounds as possible and understanding their pain points and understanding what barriers were they experiencing, and would they need or use or pay for something like Ovum. So that was kind of measuring the impact of Ovum. Could it actually have an impact on what women are experiencing in healthcare? And at that point, it was yes. There was a massive gap. Women were really struggling to collect all of their healthcare information and did not feel empowered in the healthcare system. Then we come to the pilot, which I've obviously gone through a lot of the things that we were looking at. So it was really understanding, do women want to engage with an AI? Will they come back to the app? What is retention rates? What is our NPS score? So will women recommend it to other women? Do they feel empowered? Do they have autonomy? Does Ovum actually do what we want it to do? And again, we did validate that. Then we come to the launch. So at that point, we'll be looking at customer acquisition, how many customers are using, liking, not liking, and do we need to adjust research? Is it beneficial to potential partnerships that could improve women's experiences of healthcare? And so even from the pilot, we saw that the data we collected was super useful and that no one was collecting data like that. So I think overall, if I can say this longitudinal data have global impacts on diagnostic patterns or treatments for women and then guide policies, and we can actually see a shift in how women are experiencing healthcare. I mean, obviously this will take over a decade probably. That would be, seeing the impact and success of Ovum.
Great. And my last question here is, how do you balance innovation with empathy, obviously to ensure that Ovum, is not only providing cutting edge technology, but also is genuinely improving a patient's experience?
Yeah. So I think that at the end of the day, innovating cutting edge technology to improve patient experience and empathy are definitely not mutually exclusive. They are almost one in the same. If you don't have empathy for your end user or your patient in this case, there's no way you can create a product to solve their pain points, their drivers, their needs, because if you don't understand them, then you're not creating a product that really does help them. And I think that's the same as it being a good doctor. If you can't empathize with your patients, you can't get a gut feel for what really is going on, because as much as the data or the images show you this, that, and the other, it's about connecting to that person. And then it comes to our, I guess, the fine tuning of Ovum is I've sat there with my developers and we have made sure that Ovum is empathetic, professional, approachable, and women have found, and have said in the feedback, that what they've found is for topics that they maybe don't feel comfortable going to the doctor or don't need to go to the doctor, Ovum has really hit that mark of not seeming too much like a doctor. And we don't want it to be a doctor. Mm-hmm. It is not replacing the doctor. It is about encouraging women to feel confident enough to know when to go back to the doctor, or if they do go to the doctor, being able to advocate for themselves.
Thank you. Now, I will just quickly pop onto some of the audience questions that have come through via the chat. The first one here is, as a non-technical founder, how did you understand and integrate AI?
Yeah, no, very good question. So I think I told you from my slide, Nakatomi came into the picture very, very early on. So this is when I just had an idea. I knew that I would need technical support very early. That was not my background. And again, I didn't pretend to know that. And they've been on the journey from the moment I had the idea in 2022 through to when we pivoted towards AI. They've now come on as CTO and CPO and have subsequently invested again. So I'm supported by a team of 10 to 15 people, all with tech experience. I've obviously learnt a lot myself. I sat with them in the room, coding with them, but I'm, not coming up here saying I'm a technical founder. So I think if you are a non-technical founder, find yourself either the developer, the venture studio, or the co-founder that can do that for you.
Beautiful. Now, as someone was asking, can you still sign up to the app, or have you a limited membership at the moment?
Yeah, so we only ran the beta for 1 month. We were going to run it for 3, but we actually got enough data. So now we're starting to develop the next version. So for now, if you sign up to our newsletter, you'll be updated as soon as that's ready to be on the App Store. That's our next step. So we'll keep you updated.
Excellent. And that link will be in the email that you'll receive after this call, everyone. So we'll make sure that's there. Just another quick one was, what are your key challenges over the next 12 months and what resources do you need?
So key challenges, we're currently raising in our seed round, so that's always a challenge. I think from that is basically getting to market as soon as possible, but also creating the product to the standard that I expect and that my team expect. That's always, a challenge. And then I think, with any product, as soon as you're going to B2C, that's direct to consumer, and also working on commercial partnerships as well, is going to be driving the acquisition of customers in those early days. The pilot shows that we might have a lot of success with that, but you never really know. And then it's solidifying some of these commercial partnerships that hopefully that we can get so that a large proportion of women don't actually have to pay at all. And that's really my aim. And then I'm also starting the PhD. So it's probably going to be a time balance situation.
You've got a lot coming up. Just 2 quick questions before we wrap this up. You spoke about the need to train the AI to be more female orientated. Have you compared your results to the standard models such as ChatGPT and other LLMs?
Yeah, of course. So I think one has been basing it off, user feedback and saying how they felt interacting with Ovum in the way that we trained it. And the feedback that we got was that it did not, provide any chats that were biased or not representative or wrong. And we obviously in the pilot, everyone was anonymous, but we were able to see if there were chats that were flagged as kind of being outside of its bounds that we trained it. Because of course with AI, we know there's risk of hallucination, which is making up information. And so we were watching Ovum very closely. Also, we know that with ChatGPT, we don't have this longitudinal memory. It doesn't integrate all of the things that we've coded Ovum to integrate. So it is a bit difficult to necessarily compare them tit for tat, because they actually are different in how they're approaching healthcare and clinical situations. But at the moment, it's fundamentally looking at how users are experiencing it, any red flag chats that might not be representative of women or showing gender bias.
Great, thank you for that. Now, the last question here is, you mentioned about stripping as much of the PII, which is obviously those that don't know, the personal identifiable information, as possible, before submitting information to the AI engine. Is the PII retained in the application itself?
No, so first of all, when you're talking just about the documents, so you're talking about the actual sign-up information, because the sign-up information, there should be nothing that identifies the user, but for the document itself, it won't be retained. So we store everything in a secure cloud. Even when it's stored in the cloud, it's aggregated and encrypted, and then it's again encrypted when it goes back to the server that we use, and then it's deleted after 30 days. Whatever server you use, that's their regulatory or their policies. So there'd be no personal identifiable information stored within the app, within our server, and there'd be no way of someone, if they did hack the cloud, to see any personal information, because it would be encrypted. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you've answered that. I've just got some response saying, so not even collecting the actual personal information. So thank you so much. Well, that is all the questions that we have for today, and we are going to end on time. So thank you so much, Ariella, for spending
Thank you.
45 minutes with us. It was really interesting and very much up my street. I'm very interested in kind of AI, as well as, women's health and health tech. So that was extremely interesting. Now, for all of those who are currently online, please stick around for a few moments and fill out the very short survey. This is just to gather some information about how you enjoyed the session today, and obviously to give any feedback to Ariella. Now, we are also always welcoming new mentors to the Rare Birds community. And if you would like the opportunity to, share your experience with a mentee, please indicate this in your survey. Or if you know someone you think would be a great mentor, and you'd like to sign them up, on their behalf, please do so as well. Or just reach out to me and say, don't know much about the mentoring, but I'd love to know more. More than happy to always chat. And if you have any further questions, please, again, reach out to me or one of the team members at Rare Birds. As I mentioned, you will receive an email after the session with some links and the sign-up link that Ariella mentioned. And again, enjoy your day, and any questions, reach out. Thanks again, Ariella. It was lovely to see you.
No worries. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.